Hello, I'm Dr. Jonathan Lemaster-Smith. I'm the chair of the Conference Committee on Organization and Rules. According to our plan of organization found in your program and reports book, this committee shall be constituted quadrennially and shall be the primary steward of the Western North Carolina Plan of Organization and Rules of Order. Its work shall include the following: receive and review proposed changes and/or additions to the Plan of Organization and Rules of Order, and report to the annual conference recommended changes to the Plan of Organization and Rules of Order to keep them in compliance with the Book of Discipline. This committee shall consist of 4 to 6 members, reflecting the diversity of the conference. The conference secretary, resident bishop, and director of connectional ministries shall be ex officio members without vote. The committee members for this quadrennium include Ella Hand, Denise Kilgo, Dustin Mailman, Kelly Schrader, and me. The conference staff that serve on this committee as well are Bishop Leland, Caroline Wood, and Kim Ingram. This committee met virtually several times throughout the year. We considered several suggestions for amending our Plan of Organization and Rules of Order and Procedures. Our goals are first to keep our structures in compliance with the Book of Discipline, but also to be as clear, direct, and accessible as possible. We work to eliminate redundancies, bring our structures up to date with current practices, and create a sense of clarity about these procedures. When necessary, we consulted with the Cabinet, various conference and district entities, and when necessary, other annual conferences to compare structures. If we found a suggested amendment or structural change was better handled by a different entity of the conference other than our committee, we sent suggestion to that entity for their leadership to determine the best course of action. Due to the current need for this conference to be online, we decided that certain suggested amendments that might require more prolonged discussion be held when the conference is able to resume either in person or in a space that allows for a better format for discussion. Those will be brought before the conference at a later date. The remainder of this video will be an explanation of the proposed changes as found in the program and reports book. We will work through the proposed changes in order, beginning with Part 1, Section B, Number 2. The phrase, according to paragraph 603.7, is added in reference to the disciplinary paragraph related to the election of the conference secretary. Then, later on, the phrase, on nomination by the bishop in consultation with the district superintendents, replaces the text that was related to the process that we used formerly. This is to bring us up to date with current practices. Moving on to Section B, Number 4, the phrase, according to paragraph 619, indicates the disciplinary guidelines for electing the conference treasurer and director of administrative services and eliminates the language that is simply a repetition of the Book of Discipline. Moving on to Section C, Number 1, lowercase c, members of is added to clarify language around the role of the nomination committee. Same section. The word entities is replaced with agencies. This change is made throughout as the United Methodist structure includes languages of boards, agencies, councils, committees, teams, and organizations. Therefore, for consistency's sake, when our language can mean many of these things, we will refer to them as an entity. If it refers to a specific committee, council, board, or other entity, we will refer to that board or council by name. This happens throughout the Plan of Organization, and unless otherwise noted, will be for this reason. In Section C, Number 1, lowercase f, these changes are primarily made in order to maintain consistency in formatting and precision of language. Next, in Section C, Number 2, connection. A list of persons are replaced with the phrase extended cabinet. That's for the connectional table. A list of persons are replaced with the phrase extended cabinet. Members of the extended cabinet are nominated at the discretion of the resident bishop, appointed at the discretion of the resident bishop, and may change from time to time based on the discretion of the current bishop. All persons named here were added because of their presence on the extended cabinet. Thus, we felt it more succinct to replace this language with extended cabinet. Now, on to Section C, Number 3, Council on Camp and Retreats Ministries. We no longer have a designated staff person at the conference level who is the coordinator of Camp and Retreat Ministries. So a representative from the Office of Connectional Ministries now serves as an ex officio member without vote for that committee in order to represent the conference interests and staff. Section C, number 4, Board of Ordained Ministry. The word "and" is replaced with "including" to align with current practices. Section C, number 4, Board of Laity. The parenthetical phrase, assigned by the United Methodist Men, is added following the conference prayer advocate to acknowledge that this is not a position nominated by the annual conference nominations committee, but instead by a separate conference entity, the United Methodist Men, based on the bylaws and practices of the Board of Laity and the United Methodist Men. In Section C, number 7, Committee on Conference Staff Relations, the conference treasurer is added as a member of this committee in order to align with current practices. Now to Section D, Conference Journal. Number 2, the phrase "under the direction of the Committee on the Annual Conference Meeting" is removed. As we no longer have a committee on the annual conference, we felt it best to remove this phrase and, when necessary, replace it with the person or entity which is now responsible for the matter the section references. Now, we are going to move into Part 2, the Rules of Order. We will look first at rule number 23. The coordinator of the calendar is replaced with the conference secretarial staff, as we no longer have the role as a named coordinator, thus bringing it into compliance with current practices. Any other added language is there for grammatical or reasons of clarity. Now on to Rule 30, which has 2 replacements of Conference Committee on Annual Conference, which is replaced with Conference Committee on Organization and Rules, as noted earlier. Rule 30 also has an alteration regarding changing the number of districts. As identified in the Plan of Organization, the number of districts may not be amended in the last business session of the annual conference meeting, which is replacing the later than the second morning of the annual session. This change is due to the reality that over the years, our sessions of annual conference have grown shorter over time and often are only 2 days, with business sessions occurring as late as the afternoon of the second day of business. Only having 2 days of business, we have to engage with the reality that we need to be able to be flexible with our understanding of how we might amend the number of districts. We, of course, do not want to put the annual conference in a bind by amending the number of districts after several days or sessions of business have occurred. However, we want to allow for the annual conference to make decisions. And thus, we say that they may not be amended in the last business session of the annual conference meeting instead of on the later than the second morning of annual conference. This change does still allow alterations for the number of districts, simply not in the last session of business in a standard annual conference year. Finally, on to Rule 31. It has the addition of the phrase "the meeting of the annual conference" instead of simply "conference." This is done to clarify that this rule applies solely to the meeting of the annual conference, as other entities may follow other forms of decision-making practices. I'd like to thank you for your time, and when it comes time to vote, please follow the directions provided for you by the annual conference as stipulated in Rule 32 for a virtual annual conference, and vote in the manner that you see fit. If you have any questions, please reach out ahead of the session of the annual conference to the Office of the Conference Secretary. Thank you.